Thank you very much, and hopefully we will have some questions on this as well. The first, because I'd like to have a little bit of time for interaction with the audience here. So we have one, I guess, very interesting question already, and I expected that to happen, that is referring to the club idea, because in a sense it's a very appealing one. You need, of course, a beautiful clubhouse first, Bill, for that. So let's see where it will be established, but please read out the question.
It's from Beryl Moore from the last panel, and the question is, do you think it's wise to focus on the top 15 emitters to realize the climate club?
It's for you, Bill.
So can you not hear the question?
Oh. The question is, what is your opinion to form the club out of the top 15 emitters first?
Oh, your club, okay. Yeah, club, okay. Is this on?
Yeah.
Well, I think that I don't want to get into the details of how to form the club, because it's I think a conceptual point, which is that if somebody says, we have this fine club, we'd like you to join, and you have to pay €1,000, but you don't get anything for it, you're just paying dues and you have no benefits, then it's unlikely you're going to join the club. The key point is that we're not talking about citizens of nations, but we're talking about independent nations that have to join together in this agreement. So what we need to consider, the point of the club, is that as nations weigh their costs and benefits of undertaking costly emissions, there have to be some benefits to doing it. And I think the lesson of the Kyoto Protocol is that without some kinds of sanctions or enforcement mechanism within a treaty, that it's just not going to succeed. So I guess to answer the question directly, I would say let's do all countries above some income level and assume that they're all going to be members of the club. And as countries become higher income countries, they would be expected to join the club as well.
And actually there is a follow-up question on the club. Can you read it out?
Yes. Your club idea raised the question of protectionism. It's nice to have a climate club. Maybe there's an old child labor club. Maybe there's a club on green forestry or clean production. Where do you think is this running into the problem of protectionism, and where does internationalization go?
I think that's a really important, interesting and important question, and I can't deal with it at length, but I'll give a brief answer. We face all kinds of dangers in the world. Protectionism is a danger, and it's one that we recognize and that we have measures to deal with. But I think we have to realize that the climate problem is also a danger. So I think in this respect you have to weigh alternative dangers that we're facing. And I think that if you look at if you could think of another mechanism by which we would get people to join the club, that would be fine. But as people have looked at it, this seems to be one of the few that's more or less consistent with international law and practice. It's actually in many international environmental treaties already, and it is something that's closely connected to international trade, and the climate problem is. So it would seem that we have to face that as a danger, but I think we just have to weigh that against the dangers of continued inaction.
So thanks a lot. Maybe I'll sort of, as the moderator, would like to ask first Carlo Rubbia. So Carlo, now you have to listen. It is, I mean, you talk about, and as director of the Institute for Advanced Sustainability Studies in Potsdam, so my next door neighbor, so to speak, you are trying to come up with brilliant ideas, maybe creating backstop technologies with a very small budget in the end. So do you think that under innovation business as usual, you know, the typical funding we have and fundamental research and applied research, with the current system, we will deliver these breakthroughs in time?
Well, let's say the following. This is the real question. in one hand, we see a lot of talking, a lot of discussion, a lot of effort, a lot of considerations. But on the other hand, we see that the amount of CO2 is increasing extremely quickly. And we feel that by 2000, there is no sign or even a loss in the rise. The rise continues at 3.5% per year. And we assume that by 2020, we should be, according to some expectation, we should be going down 20% below the 1995 level, which are going to be half of what they will be in 2020. Now, 2020 for us is tomorrow, in the sense that if we want to do anything practical, we have to realize a few actions, and those actions require a few years. And 2020 is tomorrow. So 2020 will not be the sign of a reversal as predicted. But let's us hope at least that there is a moment in which the derivative will flatten out at least to a level of constancy, precursory to a drop on a longer period of time. But it seems to me that this requires something absolutely extraordinary to be able to make such a thing happen. Because, as I say, the general impression is that business as usual is, after all, not such a bad thing. Every country now is broke. There are a lot of problems, financial questions, interests are elsewhere, and so forth and so on. But it seems to me that unless we do something rather quickly, the situation will become much more serious. I will discuss today, tomorrow, this question. The global warming is much worse than one thinks, and much worse than one sees, because today some fraction of global warming is hidden away by the presence of CO2 emission coming from aerosols, from the lack of transparency of the air, for the time it takes for the ocean to warm up, and so forth and so on. And we are on course on the IPCC predictions on global warming. 2 degrees is already in the pocket. It will be more than that. And what is most remarkable, most concerning, is the fact that phenomena may become regenerative. In other words, you could have situations in which, for instance, the emissions in the tundra, in the polar areas, will introduce, for instance, methane, which may multiply by a factor of 100 the emissions. So there's not a linearity between cause and effects, and therefore there's a big question mark. And I think people should be very truly worried about this situation. And the timing, in my view, is the most important question. And I agree with you, John, that the timing is today running out from us.
Okay, so thanks a lot. And I'd actually like to ask the question also to Kenji here, because you are Director General of RITE, the Research Institute of whatever you call it. Yeah? So I pronounce it in a German way. So apologize for that. How do you pronounce it in Japanese, right? As well. Okay. So that's the Research Institute for Innovative Technology for the Earth. Now, after the nuclear accident, do you feel that there is now a big redirection of funding for innovation in Japan?
Yes, it already happened. The funding changed significantly compared to the year 2010 or so. Reasonably more funds directed towards renewables. And also, fortunately, RITE is developing CCS, CO2 capture and storage. The budget for CCS is allocated properly. But to my mind, I think the budget, government or the funding agency still think the supply side is important more than demand side. So I try to take various occasions to say my opinion. There is more budget allocation for demand side. So not only for the develop more efficient devices, but to some system technology, like I mentioned in my presentation, to mobilize demand-side resources. There are many non-utility power generations in Japan. So that includes cogeneration with the combined heat and the power engine. And the very small-scale cogeneration is now available for household. using gas engines or fuel cells. And also we have storage device, energy storage device for air conditioning and hot water supply. Hot water supply mainly employing recent advanced technology, employing heat pump technologies that are quite energy efficient. And also they have hot water storage. So they can adjust the operation of compressors to accommodate the fluctuation of supply side. So to mobilize such demand side the energy devices, including in the future the batteries in electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid electric vehicles can be mobilized to accommodate the intermittent nature of photovoltaics and wind power. So the demand side orientation is important. That is my opinion. And gradually, the allocation of the budget is changing toward this direction.
Okay. So thanks a lot. Do we have any more? No. So I think everybody is more or less exhausted. But as I promised, I will sort of land on time. Let me make just two last remarks with a glimmer of hope, actually. First of all, let me remind you of the framing presentations, which were, I think, very important in sort of providing attraction for thinking about the energy system, because the attractivity, in particular for policymakers, is if you can demonstrate that you can save 1 million human lives next year already, yeah? This gets you going, of course, and this is what politicians want to deliver, success. So I'm skeptical about whether the non-CO2 reductions will, in the end, deliver the 2 degrees, and you have shown it's a matter of timing. But in order to get whatever Nordhaus Club going, I think it is a very attractive entry point, really. Yeah? So I think it's very valuable what you have done, so thanks a lot for that. And the last thing I'd like to mention is, you know, strangely enough, Fukushima did not prompt immediately in Japan an energy U-turn, but in Germany, far away. So that, of course, goes back to civil society, because there has been debate for 40 years about nuclear energy. And so it was a pre-critical state, and there was a tipping point, so to speak, 8,000 miles away somehow. So a very interesting phenomenon. But what happened in Germany is that before Fukushima already, with the feed-in tariff, that, I mean, solar and wind were providing about 15 years ago 2% of the electricity, the national. In September last month, it was 27%. And the prediction is now that it will be 50% by 2020 already. Yeah? But it's more than the system can manage, actually. Yeah? So it's too successful for comfort, if you like. Yeah? But it simply means that the second biggest exporter in the world, with a heavy industry share in value production, I mean 23%, is moving extremely quickly along the lines Carlo has sketched. So, and that's what I wanted to say about the fourth convenient untruth. It's not true that the climate case is lost. It can be done, but for that we all have to join Nordhaus Club. Thank you very much.